2 dakika MAYHEM'e gidiyoruz sipariş etmeye. Bak hadi olsun.
Overnight, familiar streets turned into frozen pathways, and everyday routines slowed to a crawl. Around Aberdeen and the surrounding areas, snow piled up fast, icy surfaces spread everywhere, and sharp winds made even short trips feel risky. A blast of Arctic air pushed down across the UK, bringing intense cold and steady snowfall to communities already bracing for winter weather. Roads that were normally busy became difficult to navigate. Cars struggled to maintain traction. Walking outside, especially in open areas, quickly became dangerous. Visibility dropped as strong winds whipped snow through the air, creating sudden whiteout conditions that caught drivers and commuters by surprise. Officials made it clear this wasn't just a quick burst of bad weather. The snow kept falling, temperatures stayed well below freezing, and ice hardened with every passing hour. Winds made things worse, shifting snow into deep drifts and slowing down clearing efforts. Local authorities issued high-level warnings, urging people to stay off the roads unless absolutely necessary and to prepare for continued disruption. Public transportation schedules were adjusted. Some schools delayed opening. Emergency services moved into a heightened state of readiness. This wasn't just another cold winter day. It was a reminder of how quickly severe weather can overwhelm modern infrastructure. As night fell and temperatures dropped even further, one thing became clear. This storm wasn't just changing the landscape. It was changing the rhythm of daily life. At first, the snowfall seemed manageable, but light flurries turned into steady bands of snow that accumulated faster than crews could remove them, especially across Aberdeen and the surrounding northeast. With temperatures locked below freezing, each new layer bonded to the last, forming compacted ice that turned roads and sidewalks into slick, dangerous surfaces. And as the storm continued, the region settled into a long, freezing stretch that demanded patience, caution, and resilience from everyone living through it. Meteorologists say the situation intensified when a deep surge of Arctic air pushed south and collided with moist air coming in from the Atlantic. That clash created a steady stream of snow, combined with strong, gusty winds that picked up loose powder and slashed visibility without warning. In open stretches and higher elevations, drivers faced sudden whiteouts. One moment the road looked clear. The next, visibility dropped to almost nothing. Traffic slowed dramatically as conditions worsened. Major roads backed up as drivers avoided side streets that became icy and unreliable. Snow crews focused on keeping priority routes open, especially roads leading to hospitals, emergency access points, and key transit corridors. But blowing snow kept refilling cleared lanes, sometimes within minutes. Even treated surfaces didn't last long. Overnight temperatures dropped into the teens Fahrenheit, freezing everything solid again and wiping out the progress made during the day. Air and rail travel felt the strain too. Airport crews struggled to keep runways clear as snow and ice built up faster than it could be removed, leading to delays and cancellations. Rail operators warned of reduced service as switches froze and safety inspections increased. Each delay had a ripple effect, disrupting commutes, deliveries, and scheduled services across the region. For residents, the cold itself became a serious concern. Extended exposure raised the risk of frostbite and hypothermia, while icy sidewalks and pathways increased the chance of falls. Officials urged people to stay indoors when possible, bundle up in layers, and avoid unnecessary travel. What started as a standard winter weather advisory had turned into a multi-day disruption where movement, safety, and timing all depended on one thing: relentless snow combined with sustained, brutal cold. By the second day, the scale of the storm was impossible to ignore. What began as a regional snow event was now affecting nearly every part of daily life across Aberdeen and northeast Scotland, from transportation and schools to emergency response and basic services. Snow continued to pile up, with several inches already compacted in urban areas, and much deeper totals reported in exposed locations and higher ground. In rural areas, drifting snow covered road edges and erased signage, making navigation difficult even for experienced drivers. And with no quick warm-up in sight, the region prepared for the storm to keep shaping life one frozen hour at a time. Authorities responded by activating snow gates on the most vulnerable routes, intentionally closing roads to keep drivers from becoming stranded in dangerous conditions. public transportation shifted into reduced operations. Bus service was suspended in several areas, and rail operators warned of ongoing delays caused by frozen track switches and limited access for maintenance crews. At Aberdeen Airport, the storm disrupted both regional and international travel. Multiple flights were canceled or diverted as ground crews worked around the clock to keep runways usable. Many passengers were left waiting, with no clear timeline for departures as conditions continued to deteriorate. Schools and educational institutions were forced to adjust as well. Several school districts announced delayed openings or full closures, citing unsafe travel conditions for students and staff. Colleges and training centers modified schedules or suspended in-person classes entirely, acknowledging that safe access simply couldn't be guaranteed. Emergency planners warned that extended cold brings risks far beyond transportation problems. Heating demand surged, putting pressure on energy systems. Rural communities faced the possibility of isolation as roads remained blocked. For residents who rely on regular medical care, access became increasingly difficult. Officials emphasized that the danger of the storm wasn't about record snowfall totals. It was about how long it lasted. Every additional hour of snow and freezing temperatures added stress to systems built for short-term events, not prolonged exposure. This was no longer a brief disruption. It had become a sustained test of resilience, showing how quickly winter conditions can push communities to their limits when relief doesn't arrive. As the storm dragged on, communities across northeast Scotland shifted from immediate response to day-to-day survival. Streets grew quieter as people adjusted their routines, delaying non-essential trips and limiting time outdoors. Any remaining movement was slow, cautious, and deliberate. Local governments moved into extended operations. Snowplows rotated continuously, focusing on emergency corridors and access routes to hospitals and care facilities. But despite constant effort, blowing snow and repeated refreezing erased progress again and again. More than intensity, persistence defined this storm. And as the cold held its grip, it became clear that endurance, not speed, would determine how the region made it through. Emergency services began to feel the strain as the storm dragged on. First responders reported a steady increase in calls related to slip-and-fall injuries, vehicle breakdowns, and weather-related assistance. Fire departments issued reminders about frozen pipes and unsafe heating practices, while police urged residents to avoid unnecessary travel that could stretch already limited resources. Inside homes, the cold introduced quieter but serious risks. Heating systems ran nonstop as temperatures stayed below freezing, driving up energy demand and increasing the risk of localized power outages. Authorities advised residents to conserve heat when possible, maintain proper ventilation, and check smoke and carbon monoxide detectors, hazards that tend to spike during prolonged cold spells. Healthcare providers also raised concerns. Extended exposure to low temperatures puts extra strain on the body, especially the heart and circulatory system. Older adults and people with chronic health conditions were considered particularly vulnerable. Clinics encouraged patients to manage medications carefully and postpone routine appointments unless travel could be done safely. Across the region, communication became essential. Regular updates from local councils and emergency agencies helped residents track road closures, service disruptions, and safety guidance. Officials emphasized that during winter emergencies, information can be just as important as physical infrastructure. As the cold persisted, one reality became increasingly clear. Winter disruption isn't defined by a single storm system. It's shaped by the cumulative impact of days spent adjusting slowly and cautiously to conditions that simply refuse to ease. While snowdrifts and closed roads dominated headlines, officials warned that the most serious consequences were unfolding quietly. Prolonged cold turned this event into a public health concern, not just a seasonal inconvenience. Medical professionals explained that cold temperatures cause blood vessels to constrict, forcing the heart to work harder to maintain core body temperature. Over time, that added strain increases the risk of heart attacks and strokes, especially among older adults and those with pre-existing cardiovascular conditions. And as northeast Scotland remained locked in freezing conditions, the focus shifted from clearing snow to protecting health, conserving resources, and enduring a winter that demanded patience as much as preparation. Public health agencies pointed out that winter cold is consistently linked to thousands of excess deaths each year. many of them happening indoors and largely out of public view. Respiratory illnesses also become more dangerous during extended cold spells. Influenza and other seasonal infections spread more easily when people stay inside for long periods, and cold air itself can worsen chronic lung conditions. Healthcare providers urged residents to closely monitor symptoms and limit unnecessary exposure, especially when icy travel conditions made even short trips risky. Inside homes, risks continued to grow. Heating systems ran nonstop, putting stress on older equipment and increasing the chance of failures. Fire services repeatedly warned about unsafe heating practices, including the improper use of portable heaters and blocked ventilation. Carbon monoxide poisoning, one of the most serious winter hazards, becomes more common during prolonged cold when airflow is reduced. Schools, care facilities, and social service organizations adjusted operations to protect vulnerable populations. Delayed openings and temporary closures weren't just about unsafe roads. They were also about reducing exposure to conditions that could quickly become life-threatening. Officials emphasized that winter emergencies rarely arrive with sudden drama. Instead, they build quietly, hour by hour and day by day, testing physical health, mental resilience, and community support systems. As temperatures remained stubbornly low, authorities reminded residents that staying safe wasn't just about dealing with snow. It was about recognizing that extreme cold itself can be one of winter's most dangerous forces. With no immediate relief in sight, officials extended and reinforced weather warnings, cautioning that the most dangerous phase of the event could still be ahead. Meteorologists explained that even if snowfall intensity fluctuated, below freezing temperatures would persist, allowing ice to harden and hazards to linger long after snow tapered off. Police and transportation agencies renewed calls to avoid all non-essential travel, warning that overnight refreezing could turn cleared roads into sheets of black ice by morning. In exposed areas, strong winds continued to push snow back onto roadways, creating unpredictable driving conditions and sudden drops in visibility. Emergency planners also focused on secondary risks, the problems that emerge after days of sustained cold. Energy providers closely monitored increased demand on the power grid, while local councils prepared contingency plans in case outages affected vulnerable households or isolated rural communities. As the cold held firm, the message remained clear. The danger wasn't just what had already happened, but what prolonged winter conditions could still bring. Public advisories focused on preparation, not panic. Residents were encouraged to keep essential supplies available, make sure heating systems were operating safely, and stay in regular contact with family members and neighbors, especially older adults living alone. Community resilience officials noted that support networks become increasingly important when extreme cold stretches from days into weeks. Forecasters also warned of a possible transition phase. Even a short period of warming could lead to melting snow, followed by rapid refreezing once temperatures drop again. That cycle often creates some of the most dangerous conditions, turning roads and sidewalks into solid ice just as people begin to let their guard down. The message from authorities remained consistent and clear. Winter hazards don't end when snowfall slows. Fatigue, complacency, and lingering ice can be just as dangerous as the storm itself. As the region prepared for another cold night, officials urged continued caution, emphasizing that endurance, not speed, would determine how safely communities emerged from this prolonged winter grip. As conditions gradually began to stabilize, northeast Scotland entered a slow recovery phase. Roads were cleared in stages. Transportation resumed carefully. Schools and essential services prepared to reopen. On the surface, it appeared the storm was loosening its hold. But winter emergencies are rarely defined by a single snowfall. This event showed how sustained cold and persistent snow can strain modern systems just as severely as more dramatic disasters. Transportation networks faltered, public services were stretched thin, and health risks quietly increased behind closed doors. Even as recovery moved forward, officials reminded residents that the true impact of winter is often measured not by what falls from the sky, but by how long the cold refuses to let go. For vulnerable populations, the danger went far beyond inconvenience or delay. Meteorologists and climate researchers warned that events like this are becoming more frequent and more prolonged. Arctic air outbreaks are no longer rare disruptions. They are increasingly part of a changing winter pattern. Cold snaps last longer, snow builds up faster, and recovery takes more time. What once felt routine now carries far greater consequences. Officials stressed that preparedness can't be reactive. Winter safety depends on planning ahead, maintaining heating systems, following travel advisories, checking on neighbors, and understanding that extreme cold can be just as deadly as the storms that dominate headlines. Often, the most dangerous moment comes when people assume the worst has already passed. This storm will eventually fade from memory. Winter will not. And as extreme weather continues to test communities around the world, the question is no longer whether disruption will happen, but whether we're ready when it does. If you liked the analysis in this video, make sure you subscribe to the channel. Please share this video with your friends, family members, and relatives. And finally, if you found this report helpful, please hit the like button. This helps us beat the algorithm and ensures this truth reaches more people who need to hear it. Thank you for watching.